So why do some people experience this detachment? We experience that spiritual detachment for a while, and then it dissipates, especially when we lose a loved one or lose anything. And then how do we know if this detachment is waxing and waning so much? How do we know that our spiritual yearning is real or not? Well, first of all, here's the thing about detachment. I believe very much that the English translation of the Sanskrit term, vairagya, which gets translated in English as detachment. I'm not a Sanskrit scholar by any means, so I do not say this from a semantic or etymological, if that's a word, perspective, but rather from a content perspective. I do not believe that is a correct English translation. Here's why. Vairagya, which we translate as detachment, is a great spiritual virtue. It is seen as something that we always aspire to, we always yearn for. You'll always hear the spiritual masters talking about the importance of detachment. Now, when most of us, for whom English is our native tongue, and we're hearing it as detachment rather than as vairagya, when we think of that, we think about it as indifference, disconnection, apathy. This is what detachment is. I used to be attached. I was connected. Now I've become detached, disconnected, disinterested. And yet, when you look at the greatest masters, and you look at the most enlightened masters, these people are so full of life, so deeply connected, not just connected to God, nameless, formless, or God in their temple. They're connected to the world. They're connected to creation. I remember sitting on a stage with His Holiness the Dalai Lama at a function in which I was sitting just behind him. And during the course of the function, he kept bending over like this. Bending over. I had no idea what he was doing. And later, I found out that it turned out what he was doing was there were little insects. It was a huge stage. It was in Haridwar. And there were little insects that were crawling across the stage. And His Holiness was bending over to pick each one up and to hand it to his aide who was standing off the stage. But, the stage was high, so the aide could stand at the foot of the stage, and His Holiness would hand it to him, and the aide would take the insect and, put it safely on the ground. Now, that doesn't sound to me like disinterest, disconnection. This is such connection that he's connected not just with our 2 or 3 or 4 people I love, but he's so deeply connected with the insects that A, he even notices they're there. B, he's worried lest someone, this was a stage, people actually had their shoes on, someone's going to step on it. I told a story a few nights ago about Paramhans Ramakrishna, who was found one day by his disciples lying in the grass in the garden, making all kinds of strange noises. And he was lying on his back, and surrounding him were snakes. And then the noise that he made changed a little bit, and the snakes went away, and bunnies came. And he spent a while making noise to the bunnies, and then the bunnies went away, and the disciples are watching this, and they said to him, what was going on here? And he said, well, the snakes have been eating the bunnies. And we understand the snakes have to eat something. They also need food. But they've been eating way more bunnies than they need. And they've been scaring the bunnies. And so I needed to have a conference with them and explain to the snakes that they really only should take as many bunnies as they need and that they shouldn't scare the others. And I needed to explain to the bunnies that the snakes didn't mean them any harm. They really were just trying to find their own food for their bellies. Now, I love this story because it shines light on the possibility when you're really connected to the world. But does this look like detachment? I mean, to lay yourself down in the grass and have a negotiation between bunnies and snakes so that they each can live peacefully? You know, I've been here over 21 years and just watching Puja Swamiji, my guru, who every minute of every day, 365, no holidays, no vacation, no weekends, no end of the workday. It's all about service. It's all about giving. Why? Because he's connected. Because he cares. He hasn't been, employed by some humanitarian organization and he better punch a time clock. Right? I mean, he takes nothing from the foundation. Nobody takes anything from the foundation. So, all of the masters I personally have ever either met or read about who were really enlightened were the most connected, compassionate beings. They were the antithesis of what most of us envision as detachment. And yet, here we have this word vairagya that gets translated as detachment. One day, I was listening to someone give a talk on the scriptures. Now, in the Indian scriptures, a lot of these virtues are personified. So bhakti, which means devotion, was actually a person. There was a being bhakti, and bhakti had a life. And bhakti had a son named Vairagya. Now, the minute I heard that, something in me went, okay. So here's what it looks like, as far as I can tell. Bhakti is not just devotion. It's juicy devotion. The Hindi word is ras, essence, juice. Okay? Now, the ras, the juice of devotion, which bhakti is, cannot, in any biological or genetic sense that I can conceive of, give birth to dry, apathetic, disconnected, disinterested detachment. And did not say Vairagya had been adopted. She gave birth. Bhakti's son. So what that to me meant was, okay, so we begin with devotion. Through devotion, what happens is we connect very deeply to the divine. Again, by any name, any form, it doesn't matter. But we connect very deeply to spirit, to the divine. Now, when we do that, something happens automatically, which is the little things that used to bother us stop bothering us. The little things that we used to think were so important stop being so important. And they stop being so important because we have reattached ourselves to something much higher and greater. Because the source of fulfillment, of love, of joy, of meaning, of peace, through being connected to the divine is so much more than anything that we ever got through material possessions, through fighting with our loved ones to get them to do what we want or speak the way we want or behave the way we want. So much more than anything that we ever got from anything in this world that was material, that was commercial. So when we have that, naturally our attachment to these things for the joy they bring us automatically dissipates. So I think that what vairagya really is reattachment rather than detachment. That through bhakti, through devotion, through connection to God, we've reattached ourselves to something that is so much higher, so much deeper, so much more profound, that automatically we are detached from our attachment to the stuff that used to bother us, the stuff in which our happiness used to be hooked. But that doesn't mean we stop caring. It doesn't mean we stop loving. It doesn't mean that we disconnect ourselves. And so to Bharti, whose question came online, I would say, first of all, just because you've had a very human response to losing a loved one, do not doubt your spiritual path at all. Love is part of the path. And when we love, and we lose the object of that love, we grieve. And that's just, it's part of the package. But what spirituality gives us is an ability to stay connected to the object of love, because what we recognize is it was actually our spirit who loved their spirit. It was our soul connected to their soul, much more so than our body and their body. And all that we've lost is their body. And so spiritually what we get is the opportunity to respond to that beautiful invitation to stay connected to them. Spirit to spirit, soul to soul, love to love, consciousness to consciousness. To find that love within us, rather than needing to see it in them facing us. But do not doubt your spiritual path, number one. Number two, do not strive for disconnection. Do not strive for detachment. Rather, strive for reattachment. Instead of pushing away the world, hook yourself so strongly, so deeply into the divine that which bothers you about the world will automatically dissipate. It's not about pushing the world away. It's about being so connected, so hooked in over here that, yeah, they had my brand of cereal, they didn't have my brand of cereal, it doesn't matter. Someone was nice to me, they weren't nice to me, it doesn't matter. Got the job, I didn't get the job, it doesn't matter. In terms of my own grounding, my own connection. Because I'm anchored somewhere over here, or here rather, that is so strong and so powerful that nothing shakes me, or very few things shake me. And that's I think what vairagya really teaches us.